obviously not a real town. My name is Harrison, and this is episode 15 of my Knitting and Crochet podcast, where, no surprises 21, I like to talk about knitting and crochet, as well as kind of yarn in general. Once I spoke about weaving. One day I might talk about some other kind of fibre-related things, but very much knitting and crochet. Like I said, my name's Harrison. I live in the south of England, and I don't think I have anything else to say about me, really. There are more of you than there were last time I filmed. So since I last filmed, the wonderful Ray and Kevin over at News at the Ready, they gave me a little bit of a shout out on their video, which was a nice surprise, and explained the kind of influx of subscribers and views that I got on my last video, because I couldn't quite work out what had happened. But that was really wonderful. So if you're new here, if you joined from News at the Ready, thanks for coming. Thanks for subscribing if you did, or for just watching the video. But if this is your first video and you enjoy yourself, liking and subscribing would be wonderful. I kind of had a little goal in my head to get to 250 subscribers by the end of the year. And then that kind of came and went from all of you new people. So anything kind of really a bonus from here out as we head towards the end of the year. But it's been 2 weeks since I last filmed as normal. I'm actually filming this on Saturday. Normally I film them on the Friday, but yesterday was a bit mad with my boyfriend had some family things that he had to deal with, so the timing just didn't make sense yesterday. So, but I've had the last 2 weeks off work, so I've had a pretty calm and chilled couple of weeks, which has been nice. I haven't really done much. I've done the odd festive thing. I went to a kind of like Christmas lights show. Not show, I suppose it's a nature park, and they kind of just put lights up, and it's kind of a light trail, I think they call it. That was really fun. We had Christmas tree day, so went with my family to buy their Christmas trees. Mine's been up since mid-November, so I didn't need a tree. But yeah, just had a kind of calm couple of weeks, kind of relaxing into the end of the year. December's my favourite time of year, so I like to be peaceful as much as possible during it. So not having the stress of work's been really, really nice. It's Advent at the time of filming, so it's currently the 7th of December. I've been, and I said this before in my last video, I've been filming Advents and me opening them every day. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a video later in December, probably in the bit between Christmas and New Year's, showing all my Advents and also showing the Advent project that I'm working on. So I'm not going to talk about it in these videos, because I'd be kind of doubling up and I'd be repeating myself. And also there'd be a lot of yarn to get to, and there's already a bit of yarn that I need to talk about today. So let's crack on, shall we? So I've got one finished object. I've got 3 whips, including one you cast on, which I'll talk to you about. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, I suppose it's kind of another languishing whip. And then I've had some yarn that's arrived. It was Small Business Saturday, the Saturday after Black Friday, and I maybe made some purchases. So I will show you those. And then we'll see what happens. We'll see where the day takes us. So let's start with my finished object. So if you've watched the last video, you'll have known that I was pretty close to finishing this, but I have since finished my shift cowl. So this is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. It's the shift cowl. I think it might just be called the shift, actually. And this is my second one of these. So the original one I made used Spin Cycle, which is a sport weight yarn that's recommended in the pattern. Ooh. You might be able to hear the wind outside because we are currently experiencing a storm, so it's quite windy. I'm not sure if that will pick up on the camera. So this is my second of the shift cowl. Spin Cycle is quite an expensive yarn, but it's a fun yarn to work with. It kind of colour changes, which is what the original intention for this was. I've made this one though in John Arbon's Yarnadelic, which is their sport weight Yarnadelic, which is a 100% Corriedale yarn. And they're solid colours, solid but with kind of a lot of depth to them, which you can kind of see there out of that colour. And then I just played a bit more with the colour placement. So I didn't follow the pattern so much in terms of colour A, B and C and where to place them. I just thought at different points I wanted to change the colour. And I'm really, really happy with how this turned out. It's a little bit smaller than my other one, just because the Corriedale yarn doesn't stretch quite as much as the... I'm not sure the makeup of the spin cycle, but I think it's got some nylon in it. It might not though. But it just didn't stretch quite as much. So it's a little bit smaller, but it still fits really nicely. And Corriedale, and the Corriedale is just really, really, it's just really, really wonderful. I actually wore this to the light trail that I spoke about. So I wore it like a week ago and it was so warm and cozy, and it kind of still comes up over my face if I want it to, or it sits nicely around my neck. And I just really love how it's come out. It's really, really squidgy. It's really, 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 really wonderful. It's one of my favourite things I've ever made. There's no mistakes in the actual knitting of it, which I'm really happy with, because I made a couple of mistakes with the other one I made. The only thing is my bind off edge, which you can see here, is curling up a bit more. I think I just did a bit of a tighter bind off than I did on the previous one. I was maybe rushing it a little bit just because I knew I wanted it to be finished. So I just kind of powered through it. When it's on, I'm not bothered. And I blocked out a bit of the curling. It could have maybe done with a slightly more aggressive block, but I was, where it's Corriedale, where this isn't a superwash yarn, I was so worried about this felting. I was really worried about touching it when it was wet. It's not felted at all, and I don't actually think it's as delicate as I thought it was, but I was just a bit stressed when I was felting it, because I really, really love it and I didn't want it to felt on me, because that would be sad. But that's the shift cowl. So like I said, this is my second one. I really, really love this pattern. I think I'll probably, at some point in my life, make another one. I might make another spin cycle one day, but I would want to buy that spin cycle in person, just so I could pick out the skeins I wanted, rather than leaving it up to buying it online, where you kind of end up with what you're given. But I also really like this one out of the Yarnadelic, so I might make another one out of a kind of John Arbon sportwear at some point, because I like the solid colours in there. I also think I would like this pattern just using two colours, so having one colour that you always use as the background colour and one you always use as the kind of, I don't know what they're called, the kind of bits, it's not a great description, within it. I think that would look really fun as well, but I'm not going to make one right now. I'm happy with the two I've got. And that is my finished object. I used the, let me tell you how much yarn. So I knit it on 4mm needles, which is what's recommended in the pattern. And I think I pretty much got gauge. I didn't gauge swatch it because I knew I'd be able to just block it to what I wanted it to be. I used, so spin cycle comes in 50g skeins. This came in 100g skeins. Of the colour A, colour A, which is the blue, I used about 30 grams. Colour B, which is the orangey colour, I used about 35 grams. And colour C, I used about 40 grams. Or at least that's what my scales tell me. I'm never sure if they're accurate or not. I should probably like check them with something that I know the weight of at some point, just because otherwise I just feel like I'm maybe lying. But maybe that's right. So I've still got plenty of all of the colours of, so I could use those to make another one of these. But I think I'm going to use these same colours in another sport weight project. Potentially like a matching hat, potentially something entirely different, but I'm in no rush at the moment. But that is the shift cowl. So let's move on to, let me put that over here so I don't lose it. Let's move on to whips. I've made a little bit of progress on my moss stitch fade blanket. So this is in a Butternut Handmade bag, as if you've watched this before, as all my bags are really. This was one that she made kind of custom for me so I could get a slightly bigger size for a blanket. And this is my moss stitch fade blanket, which isn't a pattern, but is using the Footsteps Yarn Club by, oh, let me just not get all tangled up in the yarn because it's still attached. Oh no, where's the yarn gone? So, this is the Moss Stitch Fade blanket. So, the Footsteps Club was a yarn club quarterly by Pixie Yarns, who's a really, really amazing guy here in the UK, and she released every quarter 6 colourways of a fade. And I am on quarter 3, colour 3. So, is that right? Yeah, I'm on quarter 3, colour 3. Last time I spoke to you, I think I was on this. The lighting's not great today. So I think I was on this colour. So I finished this colour, and I've now added this next colour, which is kind of a bit more variegated and moves into slightly lighter pinks and purples. I'm enjoying this again. I mean, I've always enjoyed it, but it is fingering weight crochet on a 3.5mm needle to make quite a big blanket. So it's one of those you kind of get to the end of the row and you're kind of happy to stop, but you've put in maybe like a millimetre of actual crochet, so it doesn't feel like you're progressing it much. I don't really have a deadline for this. I really, really love how it's turning out. I love this fade. I think it's going to be a really lovely blanket once it's finished. But I'm kind of not rushing with it. So this is the colourway that I'm currently working on. And then I've caked up in preparation the next colourway, so you can see how it kind of gets even lighter. Yeah, I'm just kind of ploughing away with this when I want to do a little bit of crochet. I'm kind of really into my knitting projects at the moment, so it got a lot of work on it about a week ago, and then with my Advent project and the other 2 whips that I'm going to show you, I've kind of fallen a bit more in with my knitting again. So it might slow down a little bit, but like I said, I'm in no rush to finish this. I'm kind of hoping, and this isn't a particularly strict deadline, I'm kind of hoping I finish it by like next winter. So that does give me quite, not winter, I suppose autumn. I'd like it to be done so that I can enjoy it when it's next cold, because I don't think it's going to be done while it's cold enough this go round. But who knows, I might finish all my knitting lips and then kind of really want to sit with some crochet. At some point, maybe I'll have to stop casting on new things and just work on the things I've started, but I've just got so much wonderful yarn that I want to turn into so many wonderful things that's difficult, especially with a blanket that's, like I said, it takes a lot of work to not get very much to show for it, so it doesn't motivate me that much. But nevertheless, I'm enjoying this. I'm excited to have it. This is my Moss Stitch Fade blanket. Let's do the Hipster Hat. So this is the Hipster Hat, also in a Butternut Handmade bag. This is one of the small ones that's perfect for a single skein project. When I last spoke to you, I had pretty much just cast this on, and I've made quite a good amount of progress. So the Hipster Hat is a pattern by Petite Knits. It is a all over 2x2 ribbing hat using DK weight yarn. Is it? Or I can't remember if it's a pattern that you can kind of, I mean, I suppose you can use whatever yarn if you're getting the gauge, but I think it's written for DK weight. But it might also be one where it gives you the options to do like different weights, if that makes sense. So I am using this yarn. So this is by a DK weight yarn, 100% superwash merino by Pigment and Ply, called Girl with the Pearl Earring. I think I've lost the yarn band, which was in this bag at some point. I'm not sure where it has gotten to. I might have thrown it away accidentally. But this is what I'm using. And I am at the decreases. So I've made a lot. I didn't put a progress marker on it last time, because last time there was literally like maybe 3 rows on it. But as you can see, there's now a lot more rows on it. I have marked off, so if you see these stitch markers up at the top, these are where the decreases will happen, which is interesting because the last hats I've made decrease kind of more on a, you count the decreases, so it's decrease like knits you together every 6 rows or so, and then it becomes every 5 rows, whereas this you're decreasing around certain points, which I'm excited about. I'm not like wildly excited, but I'm excited for how that's going to turn out. A bit more kind of methodical decreasing I think will be fun. It's going to have quite a wide brim. I've kind of measured the brim, I think, to about 2.5 inches. This is going to like look stupid because it doesn't really, but it's going to fit quite snug, which I'm excited about. I'm still going to get like a good couple of inches of length from the decreases. So I think it will hit kind of midway point of my ear, which is what I've tried to measure to. I find it really hard to measure patterns. Or I find it really hard to measure the decreases because I don't know. It's hard to work out kind of how much knitting there is. So I've measured the number of rows I have to do in the decreases. And I just hope I've done the maths right because I want it to fit. Because I really, really love this yarn. I love the way it's knitted up. It's one of my kind of favourite kinds of yarn that I show quite a lot, where it's like a super variegated yarn with lots of different colour in it. And I'm knitting these on 3.5mm Chalgu needles. This is my first project I've used Chalgu needles on. All my other projects I always use Leica needle. Yeah, I don't think I've ever used any other needles actually. I mean, I think I used some Knit Pro ones when I started, but then I bought an interchangeable set of Leica needles, and I love those. However, this has been really, really nice to knit on. The way it flows over the metal has been really, really wonderful. And I feel like I do see more Chalgu needles in my future, which is maybe a bit of a worry in terms of my bank account. But they are really nice. I get why everyone raves over them. I don't think I'm going to buy an interchangeable set. I think I will potentially buy fixed circular needles for the projects I need going forward, and then maybe if I do really love them for a few other projects, maybe one day I'll treat myself to an interchangeable set. But I also want to try some other metal needles. I'm thinking of trying some Addi metal needles to see whether it's the metal that I like, but maybe I prefer the Addi needles over the wood, I think is the plan. But these have been really, really wonderful to knit on. It's about to change to, I think I'm going to do the decreasing on double pointed needles again. I didn't love double pointed needles for the last hat I did, but I think I'll prefer where there's like 4 points of decreasing on this. I think it will make more sense in my brain to do them on double pointed, but I might look up maybe a bit of a video for some techniques on how to make them a bit neater, because I didn't mind the knitting. I found it a bit fiddly just because there's just so many things you need to hold, but I didn't mind the actual knitting on them, but the end result where I ended up with a lot of gaps, my nose has gone really itchy, where I ended up with a lot of gaps, I didn't love. And I think that would be more noticeable in here, where you're kind of decreasing at a bit more of a specific point, but we'll see. And that's everything on that. So that's the Hipster Hat by Petite Knits using Pigment and Ply yarn, and I already said that's in a Butternut Handmade bag. Let's talk about my new cast on. When I finished the shift cowl, I thought about it, and I really, really love the shape of this cowl, and where it's kind of the almost bandana shape, seamed in the back, and where it's knit flat, it's I mean, I would say it's easier. It's knitting in the round's quite easy as well, but it's quite a simple shape to do. And I know that Andrea Mowry has a few other patterns that use that same shape. So I wanted to cast on another one of those, and I had a look through my yarn stash, and I picked up this yarn, which I've shown you before. So this is yarn by the Crafty Bird. This is their Cozy DK base, which is 100% superwash merino, if I'm not mistaken. Do I have I have a whole skein in there that I can check. I think they're Crafty DK. Yeah, 100% superwash merino. It's a really, really kind of bouncy base. I really love it. I've used it before for another cowl. And I have cast on a Traveller's cowl, or the Traveller cowl, which also by Andrea Mowry, as I mentioned, which is a similar construction in that you're kind of knitting on the bias, so you cast on up here. This is a little, it's not a progress keeper, I'm using it more to remember which side's the right side, because it's not as obvious in my head, because obviously it looks kind of similar both sides. But I'm hitting the, sorry about that, I'm hitting the tripod with my needles. What it is it's a bit simpler, so it's just one colour, and you'll see there's this wonderful texture in there. So you're doing kind of mixtures of knits and pearls to get these garter ridges, and it's just growing like that. And I really, really love it. I love how this yarn's turning out. It's DK, so the previous one is done on sport weight, but this one is written for DK, but also gives you kind of measurements and instructions for, I think, sport and worsted, so you could go either way, because where you're not doing any kind of mosaic, or I suppose it's colour work, but it's mosaic knitting really, it's a bit more of a flexible pattern. So the instructions are a bit simpler. It's kind of, you can knit until you've got certain measurements, and then you stop doing that section and start doing other bits, which is really, really great. It's a really, really wonderful pattern actually. There are make one right pearls and make one left pearls in it, which, if I'm honest, completely blew my mind, and I couldn't figure them out for the longest time. So a bit of me almost thought, well, I'm not going to finish this pattern. But then I watched a video by someone on YouTube, I do not remember who it was, and they explained it, and then I got it in my head. So it's now kind of smooth sailing. I've just finished the part where you're increasing on both sides, so I'm now getting to the bit, so it will start going at a diagonal this way now. And I really, really enjoyed it. This was kind of a couple of, maybe I'm lying, more than a couple of hours knitting, but this went really, really quickly. There's going to be no colour changes, so there won't be any ends to weave in other than if I have to change a skein, which based on the yardage and the pattern I probably will have to. And then I'm just going to block it to the same size that I block my shift cows to, and then I'll have a wonderful other cowl that's got a bit of texture in it. And I really love this yarn. So this is by the Crafty Bird, which is, I think her name's Robin, so another yarn dyer here in the UK. It's really, the colourway is called the Family Madrigal. It's based on the film Encanto. And again, like I said with that other yarn, it's just like super variegated, loads of colour within it. Really. I have 3 skeins of this. My hope is that it doesn't take very much of a second skein, if it needs any at all, so that I can make more things with it. I think I might want to make a hat using this as well and have a little bit of a matching set, which might be cute. I think my mum would really love this colour as well, so maybe something for my mum as well at some point. And that is sitting in, surprised to know, another Butternut Handmade bag. This is their kind of medium sized bag, which is really great for a kind of, it can handle a 4 skein project, but it's really great for a 3 skein project in terms of, I mean, it's great for a 4 skein project. I did my Go-Go Dynamo shawl in it, which is quite a large 4 skein project, and it handled that no problem. I always forget to say this at the start of the video, everything I talk about in terms of patterns, yarn, and these project bags will be linked down below as well, so if you want to go and check it out, if you want to go and look at any patterns or anything like that. And that is my final whip. I've got another project that I'm going to talk to you about, which I guess is a whip. And then I do have my Advent project, which I'm not going to talk about because I will talk about that in the Advent video. If I don't finish it during Advent, I will then talk about it in these, but I'm so far keeping up with it as of day 6. I've not done day 7 yet, so I'm hoping I will finish it and maybe just have to like seam it together and finish it on like Boxing Day potentially. So let's talk about another blanket. I love blankets. When I started making stuff, I started crocheting, and I basically then spent the whole of 2023 just making blankets. I think I made 13 blankets in that year. Most of them that I gifted away, a few that I still have dotted around. And in 2024, I've kind of shifted, and I'd say I'm more of now a knitter who crochets rather than a crocheter who knits. I'm a bit more confident with crochet, but I think knitting fits into my brain a bit better. Especially, I have kind of the drive to try new things with knitting in a way that I don't with crochet as much. If I see something really complicated in crochet, I kind of just think that looks a lot. Whereas in knitting, I think that looks fun. I'd like to try that. I'd like to learn that. So yeah, I think I'm probably more of a knitter who crochets. Having said that, I love to crochet, and I like mindless crochet anyway. So the kind of simple stitches, they work fine for me. And one of my fave stitches, which, yeah, I guess it counts as a stitch. I love granny squares. I love granny stitch. I think it's so mindless because you're not having to, because you're just going into chain gaps. I just really like making granny stuff. And I spoke a few months ago about a blanket that I wanted to make that was a granny square blanket. So a bunch of granny squares that I would then join together into a blanket. And I was using leftover bits of yarn for these. So I will show you some of these. So I've made, I think, about 20. So they all kind of, I might just drop them while I'm done with them. So they all are super, or not super variegated, but they're all variegated is kind of the vibe I'm going for. I maybe won't show you all of these. Maybe I'll pick out a couple of others. And they're all fingering weight. I'm doing 7 rounds using a 3.5mm hook. I really, this is one of my fave colourways. But there's loads in here. There are, some of them are leftovers from 100 skeins that I've kind of put into other projects. Some of them are minis that I bought specifically for this. So for example, this one at all, I bought some, this is the Labienne, no it's not. Is it Labienne? No, it's, I'll look it up because otherwise I'll get annoyed. It's, I bought it from Loop. Let me set. I think their minis are called like Unicorn. So shout out if you've Madeline Tosh. So I bought some Madeline Tosh Unicorn tails when I did an order from Loop. So I've got a couple from there in it. A lot of it's the Crafty Bird in the mini set from the Good Omens currently. But then there's also, this is a Pigment and Ply colour that was left over, I think, from a hat that I made. But anyway, I've got about 20 of them. I think to make the size of blanket that I want, I think I'll need about 200. And this is a long-term project that one day, hopefully, I'll finish. But I thought I'd show, because my plan is to kind of get going on making some more and kind of using up the minis, because I would like to get to a point where I'm kind of making squares as I go rather than having a load of yarn I need to make squares with and then having to do that afterwards, because I think at some point that would become overwhelming, and I already have quite a lot of minis here. So the first 3 minis, so I've already shown some of this is new yarn that I bought over the last few weeks. I bought these 3 minis, which I've shown you. This was in my Southern Wool Show, the video after the Southern Wool Show. So these are from Dinah's Home of Crafts, and she had a stand with those minis on, so I picked out 3 that I thought would go well in the blanket. So these are going to go in. I have, apologies for rustling, I have the mini set from the Crafty Bird, which was her Season of Magic colourways. So there are 10 of these, and this was her like autumn release. So I bought the mini set. This I also bought at the Southern Wool Show. So I have these. And then I've also, there's a yarn company that I've looked at for ages. I love their colourways. They do such fun colours, called Hedgehog Fibres. You may well have heard of. They're based in Northern Ireland. They might be in the Republic of. They're based in Ireland, north or south. I said that Hedgehog Fibres, I think, and they do sock minis, and they had a sale on for something. I don't think it was Black Friday, or it might have been, but it wasn't on Black Friday, and so I bought a kind of, how many did I buy? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I bought 7 minis from them to be able to put into it. So again, super variegated, lots of different colour in there. And this is on their 75%. No, it's on their sock base. I think they call it their sock base. Yeah, they call them sock minis. But it's a 90-10, which I've not actually seen before. So 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon. And it's wonderful and soft. So that's a slightly different base. So my plan is, what I want to do is I want to wind all of these up all at once. I used to, when I had a mini, I used to hand wind into a ball, and I like having a ball of yarn. I like my hands having dexterity left better though. So my plan is what I do, this is actually one of the advent minis that I've already done it with. I wind them into mini cakes, and then I use them from the cake, and then when they're done, I wind that into a ball. That might be really boring information, but that's how I'll do it. And then I'll keep, because these granny squares use less than 10 grams, and these are all 20 gram minis, so I'll then have plenty left, which I've been putting to one side, and I'll put into another project at some point. Probably another blanket, but maybe like a scrappy cowl of some kind. Who knows? But once I've got 200 of them, I will then look and find a colour that I want to join them together with, and I will make a blanket. And I think this is just going to be the most wonderful blanket. I'm so excited about it. I originally wasn't weaving in the ends as I went, but that meant that I had 40 ends to weave in the other weekend, and I did it, and it didn't take too long. And I don't hate weaving in ends, but I think I'm going to start weaving them in maybe every 5 squares, just so I don't have to do loads at once again. Maybe I'll do it as I go. I don't like crocheting over ends. I thought I was going to sneeze. I don't like crocheting over ends because I find I'm thinking about it too much, and it makes my tension a bit looser. So I prefer to weave them in at the end. But yeah, I just don't. And I definitely don't want to wait and do 400 ends all at once, because I'll end up trying to cut corners and then granny squares will fall away. I'm getting about 4 inches per square from the 7 rounds, so it's going to be a quite sizable blanket, which I like, which is why I need 200 of them. And I think that's a 10 by 15 is what I've said, but then is that 200? No, that would be 150. So maybe it's like 12 by 16. I don't know. I was never very good at my times tables in school. And I don't think we did 16 times tables either. I think that's probably a bit much for a 10-year-old. So, but I don't need to do the maths now. What I'll do is I will just keep making minis until I think I'm close, and then I'll count and work out the maths and work out how many I need. And then if need be, if I'm like really close but I need maybe 2 more, I can reuse some of my favourite colourways a couple of times, because you won't be able to tell unless I put them right next to each other. So that's probably the goal at some point. It's a long-term project. I don't know how long-term. I don't know whether it's like will it be done in 2025? Probably not, because I don't think I'll buy 200 or 150 mini skeins in 2025. So it might be like it's a 2026, 2027 kind of project, which is fun. It's fun to have a project that I've worked on for that long. But that's everything on that. So let's talk about some new yarn that's come in. So like I said, it was Small Business Saturday, the Saturday after Black Friday, which also happened to coincide with payday. So I was in a bit of a treat myself mood, and I bought some yarn. The first one, actually, this wasn't Small Friday Saturday. This was this is a club that I do. So if you've watched before, you'll have seen that I'm doing a granny wrap by Annaboo's House using the Green Lampkin Yarns Secret Treasure Box Blanket Club yarn. That felt like so many words. each month you get 4 20-gram minis. I'm getting them on the Classic DK. I think you can either get Classic DK or Sparkle DK. I'm getting them on the Classic DK. And they're just kind of a complete mixture of colours based on kind of things that you might find in treasure boxes. So kind of various jewels and that kind of thing, I think's the vibe. But it's really a really wonderful assortment of colours. And I'm putting them into a granny wrap for the year. So this is November's colourway. So hopefully you've already got this. Otherwise, apologies for spoiling it to you. So those are the penultimate colours. So the next month, which I'm assuming we'll get early January, will be the final lot, and then I'll have a finished project that I've worked on all year, which I'm excited about. But that's the first yarn that came in, which wasn't part of Small Business Saturdays. Let's start with Pigment and Ply did some mystery colourway. Not mystery colourways, but some mystery bundles. So I've spoken about Pigment and Ply a lot on the channel. They're one of my favourite dyers, so having just some more of their yarn was appealing to me. So they did 3 bundles of 3, and you could pick the base. You could pick whether you wanted like a fingering weight base or a DK base. They might have had another option. And I picked fingering weight, and then it was a mixture of bases in terms of actual what yarn you got. So I got one that's just their kind of, this is the colourway Elsewise. I'm not sure what collections these are from. This is the colourway Elsewise, which is in their 75%, 25% sock yarn. So it's this wonderful, quite deep toned, not super variegated, but like there's still a lot of colour within it. Yarn. I think my boyfriend will really like this actually, so this might become something for him at some point. But really love that. I got this colourway, which is 100% superwash merino, and this is the colourway Lavender Haze. I think this is from her Taylor Swift collection. I'm not a listener of Taylor Swift, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think Lavender Haze is a colourway. And I think I remember when she was announcing this collection earlier in the year, seeing this colour. So it's a really nice kind of lavender, surprisingly. What a wonderful name for it. I'm not sure, this is a colourway that I wouldn't typically kind of reach for, but I think will be quite a nice gift for someone at some point. And that's in the 100% superwash merino. And then this is a colourway, which I think's potentially like an older colourway of theirs. And it's on an interesting base, so it's a 2-ply high twist sock yarn. So it's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, but you can see the twist in it a bit, which is fun. And this is the colourway Snow on the Beach. So it's a kind of softer, again, pretty variegated, but softer colourway. And I really, really love this. I think there's a chance maybe I would use these together in something. I think they'd be quite nice together, actually. But we'll see. It was kind of, and this is silly because I have too much yarn already, I kind of almost had it in my head that I was like stocking up, but I don't need to stock up, I have so much yarn. So they probably won't be used for a while, but they'll go in my stash. And at some point, they'll be the perfect yarns for something. I also got so we're doing some mystery scarf sets, which is a 50-gram skein of sock weight yarn, and then a 20-gram of Surrey alpaca, I think. Yes. So I got these colourways. It's the Sophie scarf set, so I think it must be enough yarn to do the Sophie scarf. I'm not sure if I'll use it for a Sophie scarf. I think I might use it for a hat, because I think I can typically get a finger and weight hat out of 50 grams. It might be pushing it slightly. And then this Surrey alpaca, I've only, I think in person, touched mohair. But this is a 72% Surrey alpaca, 28% silk. It's so soft. It's really, really wonderful. So I'll probably use these together, but I might separate them at some point. I might find that there's something else I want to use this blue for and something else I want to use this Surrey for. But I don't, like I said, I don't think I'll make a Sophie scarf out of them, because Sophie scarf feels like something where it's like, are you a knitter if you haven't knit it? But also, I have no need for a small little scarf. I have a relatively large neck. I don't think it would work for me really, aesthetically. But I might make it for someone as a gift, or I might make it into a hat, or who knows. The world is literally my oyster. And then also, Jess over at, so that was Jess at Pigment and Ply. Jess over at Skein and the Stitch did this, a similar thing, and I got from them their DK weight. Let me get out the plastic actually. A DK weight thing, and I got 3 colours from there. I mean, they were a pack of 3, so of course I did. And this is in there, I think all 3 of these are in their Plush DK base, which is 100% Superwash Merino, which I've used before for something, I think I've used it before. This is the first colourway, which is called, I think it's called Joe. Because it says Joe, it's got Joe written on the back, but Joe also sounds like I don't know, maybe it was named after a person. I don't know what it is, but it's really, really lovely. It's a kind of soft, mostly green, but it's more green in person than it's showing up. I think on camera it's looking like there's more of the creams and browns in it, but in person it's a lot more green. This is probably a mum thing again as well. I think my mum would really like this. Maybe I'll give it to my mum, because she knits. Maybe she would like to make something out of it, or maybe I'll make her something from it. I then got this, which was, I think, a colourway she does quite often called Smoke. It's got seconds on it, but so it must not be quite, I think it maybe has some like speckling in it that it's not meant to, but it's for the most part a really wonderful kind of like off-white colourway, which is always really helpful. Could definitely make something out of the 2 of those. And then the other one didn't have a band on, but it's the same base, and is this really nice kind of, I mean not kind of, it's brown. It's a bit more cooler toned in person than it's showing up on camera. The yellow's reflecting off it a bit. If I hold it over there, that's maybe showing up more true to colour. But those are the 3 skeins that I got from Skein and the Stitch. So that's, where do I put these now? I'll just put them there. And I think that's everything from me this week. So the next time I do a video will be I think it's the 20th. It's the Friday before Christmas, and that will be my last podcast of the year. And there's a chance I might do that one a little bit different. I'm definitely going to progress things between now and then. So maybe it won't be super different. I'm thinking of filming a video that's kind of a bit of a retrospective and a bit of a look forward in terms of things I've done in 2024 and things I want to do in 2025. Because there's definitely some projects I have in mind, and there's definitely some things that I definitely want to learn next year. But whether I do that as that podcast, or whether I do that as kind of a separate video just before the new year as a kind of end of year video, I'm not sure. I guess I've got 2 weeks to work that out. So I'll give that some thought. But I hope you've had a really wonderful 2 weeks. I hope you have a really wonderful 2 weeks. I hope if you celebrate, you're having a wonderful Advent. I hope if you're not, you're just having a wonderful December.